Hi, my name's Jason, and this video is mostly going to be about the building process for this tambourine. I'm an independent musician. I make original music in this room, link in the description below. And what I really want is expressive instruments for the process of recording. So I'm going to do a quick little sound demo, but mostly, as I said, this video is going to be about how to build it. I'm going to put the damper in. We're going to step out of the studio now, and we're going to go to the workshop for the rest of the video. To start, we're going to make what I was calling the donut. I'm cutting a bunch of pieces that I'm going to glue together. This is an alternative to bending wood. If I put a 10-degree angle on each side, 18 pieces times 10 degrees times two sides is 360, everything you need for a circle. This is cherry, which I really like working with because it doesn't have a bunch of crazy grain patterns that cause problems, and it looks good with just a straight varnish on it. So you may be noticing that this is going to be end grain against end grain and basically a butt joint that I'm gluing together, which isn't really the strongest thing, but I'm going to address that by making two rings and then glue them together long grain to long grain, interlocking, which is going to provide most of the strength. Now those big donuts were clearly oversized for the tambourine, and I did that so I'd have some room to run this routering process, and I made this jig to spin my router around and cut out a perfect circle. And so I'm just trying to cut the top edge here clean in a perfect circle. So I only need the circle jig to cut a few millimeters deep. And then that first few millimeters of cut will serve as a guide that these flush trim bits can run against and then complete the full depth of the cut. And the second pass here is just to get the additional depth of cut I needed. So now I'm cutting out the slots for the jingles, and I'm also finding that I need to build another jig so that I can hold this round thing steady under my drill press and make an accurate cut. And these are super sharp brad point bits. Didn't really get any tear out on the other side of the cherry, and then I'm going to finish it with a chisel. And I've never been super fussy about the perfection of the finishes on my woodworking, so you're not going to see a lot of sanding from me. So a nice feature that I've noticed on tambourines is when they have a grip that has a diameter that fits very naturally in your hand. So that's what I'm doing here, and all of these sort of holes and bumps and valleys are just to get it to kind of mold onto your hand so you don't have to hold it so tight that the tambourine itself just kind of fits in your hand by friction alone. And right here I'm just using sandpaper inside the shell to get the fit to be very tight so that the glue will hold well. This is another ergonomic detail. I'm putting a little carve out into the depth of the shell so that when you grab it, your hand fits in the middle of this section and then will provide a little bit of friction against the outside edges, and again will allow you to loosen your grip and be a little more natural. Now this section is all about creating the bearing edge for the drum head that I'm going to attach. And I didn't know anything about drums when I started, so this is what I've learned, is that you want the outside edge to be a quarter round or similar that provides the support for the head. And on the inside edge, I'm doing this 45-degree bevel, which creates a clean takeoff for the drum head so that it can vibrate freely. Now as a guitar player, I was noticing this was very similar to how a guitar nut works, where you want the front edge to be a clean takeoff point for the string, and then the rest is a support for the string. And now it's time to make the jingles. The metal that you choose does make a big difference to the sound. I went to the music store and I tried everything out, and I chose copper, and this is just some sheet copper that I ordered from Amazon. It's 2 millimeters thick, and I just cut them and I pounded it out. That's the point where I pounded my finger, and that hurt quite a bit and took several days before I could play guitar again. So don't do that, but I did manage to finish the rest of the job without injuring myself further, and filed them up and cut little holes in them. So we're going to set those aside for the moment. And we're back to the shell. We're going to make some pinholes so that we can hold those jingles in place. But before we install jingles, we're going to put some finish on. I really like these wipe-on polyurethanes. Really easy to work with. They're a little bit slow to work with, but if you're not trying to pump things out commercially, I think you have time. Now these are actually vintage bicycle spokes, so they've already lasted a few decades without rusting, and I'm just going to drop them in there with a little bit of super glue to hold the jingles on. So now we're onto the drum head. I soaked this thing for about a half an hour, and we're gonna punch some holes in it and tie it onto the frame, which just kind of holds it in place. And then I'm wrapping this elastic around it, and I'm gonna stretch it mostly by hand is really where the stretch came from. And I kind of pulled as tight as I could without fear of ripping it, and that seemed to work. So I thought about getting some fancy tacks, but decided aluminum staples would work just fine. I'm going to cover it with some ribbon, and unfortunately the rest of the build after this, the footage got corrupted, so I'll let you hear it just one more time. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like and subscribe, and please check out my original music, which will at some point in the future feature this tambourine.